Have you ever stopped to wonder why your rent is so expensive?
You don't have to raise your voice.
You pay you!
I can give you half.
You pay! No!
Let's find out. This video was made possible by my patrons. Just Another ANCAP, Scorch88, Mag, and all other patrons at the additional tiers. Thank you so much to all of you. Hello everyone, this is My 2 Cents. Holy cow, Bernie Sanders just won't stop spewing economic illiteracy on his YouTube channel. And for some reason, people are buying this crap. Most recently, he's addressed the issue of affordable housing. Now, as much as I'd like to ignore him, he's likely gunning for the presidency again in 2020, so his crap needs to be addressed. Let's get into it.
There is not a single county in America where a minimum wage worker can afford a 2-bedroom apartment at fair market rent, working 40 hours a week.
Well, how many workers working a minimum wage job 40 hours a week require a 2-bedroom apartment? According to a 2015 study by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, only 3.3% of all hourly paid workers nationwide made at or below the federal minimum wage, and more than half of these workers were under the age of 25. In other words, the vast majority of people making minimum wage are not married couples with children trying to make ends meet while one spouse works and the other spouse stays at home with the children. They are teenagers and college students who typically would still be living with their parents, or sharing apartments with roommates in order to cut costs. Don't act like this is a crisis. A single person or a couple without children, both under the age of 25, does not need a 2-bedroom apartment.
This isn't just a problem in big cities with high rent. Across the country, millions are struggling to pay rent and make ends meet. In 2018, a worker must earn $22.10 an hour to afford a modest 2-bedroom home at fair market rent.
Again, the majority of the demographic you're speaking about are not in a position to need a 2-bedroom apartment. But while we're on the subject, how is it that rent prices are determined in the first place? Well, in a free market, they would be determined the same way every other price is determined: supply and demand. If there is a large group of people wanting to rent apartments but only so much apartment space available, prices will rise to compensate for the increased demand. Single people living in their own apartments may choose to take on roommates in order to split the increased costs, and older couples whose children have all moved out may choose to move into smaller apartments since they no longer need the extra bed space. Further, the rising prices will signify to housing developers that more housing in the area is needed, and so they will be encouraged to build more in order to obtain profits. Like every other industry, the process of supply and demand ensures that prices will seek equilibrium, the point at which the supply matches the demand. However, Bernie and his ilk have a different plan. They would either have the government declare by decree that landlords may not charge more than a certain price for their housing, or they would demand that wealth be redistributed from the wealthy so that lower wage workers can use it to buy housing. Such measures artificially make it look like there is less demand for housing than there actually is. What is the result? Thomas Sowell explains. Some people who would normally not be renting their own apartments, such as young adults still living with their parents, or some single or widowed elderly people living with relatives, were enabled by the artificially low prices created by rent control to move out and into their own apartments. These artificially low prices also cause others to seek larger apartments than they would ordinarily be living in, or to live alone when they would otherwise have to share an apartment with a roommate in order to be able to afford the rent. Some people who do not even live in the same city as their rent-controlled apartment nevertheless keep it as a place to stay when they are visiting the city. Hollywood movie stars who keep rent-controlled apartments in New York, or a couple living in Hawaii who kept a rent-controlled residence in San Francisco, for example. More tenants seeking both more apartments and larger apartments create a shortage even when there is not any greater physical scarcity of housing relative to the total population. The point is that if there is indeed a shortage of available housing, it can only be because the government has introduced price controls or wealth redistribution that prevents the mechanism of supply and demand from working. Further, Bernie and his ilk can declare all they want that a 2-bedroom apartment is a basic right of all members of society. That doesn't change the fact that it takes time, labor, and resources to build them.
This is out of reach for millions of low-wage workers. That means to afford a 2-bedroom apartment, a worker making the federal minimum wage needs to work 122 hours per week or 3 full-time jobs.
Again, the vast majority of workers in the demographic of which you speak are not in a position to need their own 2-bedroom apartment. Further, if the government got rid of price controls and regulations, nothing would stop housing developers and landlords from ensuring that the appropriate amount of housing was produced at equilibrium price.
Despite the enormous need, our federal investments in affordable homes have not kept pace. Today, because of a lack of funding, 3 out of every 4 families in need of housing benefits are turned away. Without this help, the average renter struggles to make their rent every month, and they are forced to make impossible choices between keeping a roof over their head, paying for groceries, medication, or other basic necessities.
Yeah, remind me again what happened the last time the government took extensive measures to ensure that every American could afford their own home. Oh yeah. It led to the 2008 financial meltdown. Check out my last video response to Bernie's channel if you'd like to learn more about this, link below. Given the government's track record of what happens when it tries to interfere in the housing market, what do you think will happen this time?
It is unacceptable that in a country as rich as ours, people face these impossible decisions every day.
Saying it's unacceptable doesn't change the fact that it takes time, labor, and resources to produce food, housing, and every other basic necessity. If you think that declaring that everyone deserves these things solves the problem of economic calculation, you are terribly wrong.
And yet, President Trump continues to call for cuts to housing benefits that help millions of low-income households at a time when 11 million renters are unable to afford modest rental homes.
As I've already pointed out, this wouldn't be the case if supply and demand were allowed to work apart from government intrusion.
Research and evidence has shown the widespread positive impact of affordable housing. When people have access to homes they can afford, they are better able to find and maintain employment and stay in good health. A stable place to call home gives kids more opportunities to succeed in school and life. Increasing and preserving affordable homes in areas of opportunity helps people climb the economic ladder, leading to stronger communities, bolstering economic productivity, and job creation.
I couldn't agree more. Why then do you want to increase the government intervention that is preventing affordable housing from working in the first place?
This year, advocates and congressional champions achieved a 10% increase in federal housing investments for fiscal year 18. This was an important step forward, but these investments are at risk. These investments are not only vital for the more than 11 million extremely low-income renters, it is also important for the average renter whose hourly wage is $5.22 below what they need to afford a modest 2-bedroom apartment.
As I've explained in the past, it is empirically provable that minimum wage can only hurt the very demographic it's supposed to help. I'll leave a link to a video below, but I'll also note that for all Bernie's talk of the necessity of minimum wage increases, his beloved Scandinavian utopias are doing just fine with no minimum wage at all.
Let's call on Congress to expand critical investments in affordable homes and remove threats of benefit cuts and arbitrary work requirements for those already struggling to make ends meet.
I am getting tired of correcting the basic economic misunderstandings that underlie all of Bernie's policies proposals. But so long as my generation keeps buying it, I shall continue to do so. Please, for the love of God, people, the only thing that will ever ensure that people have the things they need at affordable prices is the free market. In the words of Harry Brown, your beloved state does nothing more than break your leg and then hand you a crutch. Why would you thank anyone for doing a poor job of fixing a problem that they themselves caused? And that is my 2 cents. Take it for what it's worth. Thanks everyone for watching. If you liked this video, please hit like and subscribe. You can also hit the bell to ensure you're notified every time I upload a new video. This video was made possible by my patrons. If anyone else would like to donate and help ensure that I have the time and resources to keep putting out content, for just $1 a month on Patreon or Maker Support, you'll have your name listed in the end credits of every video and the link to one of your social media platforms listed in the description. You can also support the channel by purchasing My 2 Cents merchandise on Teespring. You can also follow me on Twitter, Minds.com, BitChute, WordPress, Gab, and iTunes. Uploads are every Thursday and Saturday, so stay tuned for more videos.